Welcome to the Sisters-in-Laws podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women that replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women in the United States, according to the CDC and NIH. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, or stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, and hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. Freeman, and you'll hear me interview other sisters-in-laws from around the world who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Storytelling is powerful. Storytelling is activism. Storytelling is healing. Now let's get started. Hello, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So
Erica, how
excited
are
to
you?
have you. I'm doing well. How are you
I'm
doing?
hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. The weather here is doing some wacky things, so the allergies in the voice, but I'm gonna push through. So hopefully
Yes,
my voice will last throughout the duration of our conversation today.
absolutely. Well, I want you to just introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them what you
Absolutely.
do.
I will. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm Quisha Umemba. I am here in Dallas, Texas. Oh man, what do I do? It's so easy to identify with our professions, right? So I'm going to
Mhm.
kind of lead with that. I am a registered nurse, although I tend to forget it. Sometimes I say I'm a retired registered nurse, but my license is still active. I've been a nurse for 22 years. Half of that time I've been in public health. And so every day I get to run Umemba Health, which is a AI powered training and workforce development consultancy. I've been the CEO of Umemba Health for the last 6 years. I absolutely love what I do there. In addition to that, I am also the principal at Fertile Ground Fertility Doula Services, which we're going to talk a lot about today, hopefully. It's a passion project of mine, sometimes I call it ministry, sometimes I call it soul work. But I definitely think it is going to be the next phase of my life, what I focus on most. And so I'm also a mother of three boys, 24, 16, and 9 months. Uh, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, all of those things. And I'm a child of God. I should have led with that. I'm definitely a daughter of the Most High. So I'm really excited to share my story with your listeners today.
Absolutely. Well, we could start right where you ended. You have a 9-month-old, a
I
16-year
do.
old, and a 20. You're talking about a time
A
difference. So really
time difference.
take us back on that journey because obviously having a child 24, 25 years ago is so different than having a child today.
Girl, who
Um,
you telling?
So take us
Yes,
back on this journey because obviously we know that you have a very detailed story that I want to go into, but I really want you to focus on just pretty much this last like 10 years leading up
mhm.
until you delivering your baby.
Oh, that's so great 'cause,
Yeah.
it was actually 10 years. 10 years
Oh, it
ago,
was. Oh, that was just me
well,
guessing. Oh,
10
wow.
years ago is when I met my husband,
Okay,
and
okay.
so my first marriage, 16 years, I had my 2 boys, I tied my tubes after my 16-year-old. I said, "Hey, I've made my air and my spare. I've given my contributions to the world. I'm not doing this again. I did not have fun the first 2 times. I don't handle pregnancy well. The labor is certainly not the best. And then I remember I made a list of 33 qualities I wanted in my next husband. And my husband met 30 of those. And one of the three, I told God I wanted a man that already had his own children because God, I wasn't doing that again. And he just happened to not have that one on the list. So, when we met, And he's Nigerian. Let me say that also. He is the first son, so it's very cultural. And I remember telling a friend of mine, she's West African, just not from Nigeria. And she said, "Girl, you know you got to get that man a baby, right?" It's the first thing she said. You know you got to get that man a baby. And we had decided to get married, and he said, "Well, I just want one. That's it." He was like, "You got two. Those are our kids too. I just want one." And he knew that my tubes were tied, and we knew it would be a few years before we were ready to even go in that direction. But I'll be honest with you. Let me tell you what I told my therapist. I said I thought he was just gonna change his mind. To be honest, I thought we would just get married and live happily ever after. He'll be like, "Oh, I'm good with her kids." I'm not gonna tell you what she told me, but because she was a sister girl too. But anyway, she basically told me I was delusional, and so I had to go through a lot of therapy because I really still didn't want kids at that point. And so at 39, I was like, "Oh, we're running out of time. We probably need to probably go and jump on this." And my husband was getting antsy, and so I went to a reproductive endocrinologist and said, "I need to get my tubes untied. We need to have a baby. I'm almost 40." And he said, "Well, let's make sure y'all can have kids first before." It was such a good foresight now that I'm thinking about it. He said, "Let's test your husband's sperm, right? Make sure he can even, can see, create." And then he said, "And let me look at your uterus, your ovaries, your everything." And so we did a hysterosalpingogram, HSP, I think is how and they saw a fibroid on the lining, two actually. One was on the lining of my uterus and one was on the outside, so they didn't bother that one. But he said, "Hey, if you're going to try to get pregnant before we even do this tubal reversal, we need to get rid of this fibroid that's on the lining because it's going to affect the embryo's ability to implant." And I told him, "I don't have fibroids." "What do you mean? I don't have painful periods. I don't have heavy periods. I don't have fibroids." It was a lot of stuff, obviously, I had that I did not know. So we got that removed. And then a month later, I went in and did a tubal reversal. And I woke up on the table, and the doctor said, "One of your tubes was so far too badly damaged that we couldn't replace it." And he patted me on the shoulder and said, "But you're going to be okay. You can get pregnant with one tube." I cried like a baby. Because look, and I'm a nurse, right? Nurse, retired nurse, as I like to say. Um, but I wasn't a women's health nurse. You know what I mean? And I did not know you could get pregnant with one tube. I was devastated. Mind you, a tubal reversal, something you pay out of pocket for, is not covered by insurance. And I think, thinking back on things, that was kind of the first time I realized, like, oh, this isn't as cut and dry, as smooth as I thought it was going to be, right? So we did that, and 9 months later, actually 8 months later, we're just antsy. At this point, I'm about to be 40 in a couple of months. It hasn't happened. Let's just go straight to IVF. Write a check. Here's mail the check in because we had moved from Austin to Dallas, but we wanted to keep our art in Austin. Mailed the check in. The nurse calls. "Quisha, we've been waiting on you to call and tell us when your period is." I look at my husband. We're in the car. I look at my husband like, "When was my last period?" And so we were pregnant naturally after that tube reversal with my one tube. And so they ripped up the check, and I'm like, look at God. And here I am thinking that's going to be the story. I was like, "Oh, wait till I tell people this testimony." Wait till God has a sense of humor. And I had a very promising ultrasound 7 weeks later. And then on the eighth week, on my birthday, I miscarried. Yeah. And so started trying immediately. You know what they say, "Oh, you're fertile after you have a miscarriage," and all this other stuff. Well, 10 months later, I was not pregnant. And so I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on. Go back to the RE. He does another HSP, and that one tube blocked from scar tissue. So now we have no choice but to go the IVF route. And I'm going to pause right there. Give the listeners a little bit of suspense.
Yes, the IVF route. So you all went straight because your tube was blocked. They wouldn't even consider trying to unblock it
Well,
or
they
trying
did.
to do something around the scar tissue.
Well, the way it was explained to me is I could have the surgery to remove the scar tissue, which may actually end up damaging it further, which put me back at at the start, at the beginning. So I still may have ended up right back doing IVF. And at this point, I'm 40, 40 and a half. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just, And I'm thinking because I had a friend that got pregnant on IVF the first time, even though she didn't tell me till her baby was 5. Best friend, mind you, didn't tell me till her baby was 5 years old that she got pregnant with him through IVF. Yes, this is why I'm so vocal about infertility and IVF and IUI, all the things, especially in the Black community, because people you've known your entire life are so ashamed about their inability to be able to conceive that they don't even tell their best friends that they've been best friends with for 20 some years, you know? So because she was the only person I knew that it went through IVF, sorry, and she got pregnant the first time, I just assumed I was going to get pregnant the first time we did ours as well. So I knew I had diminished ovarian reserve. I had a low AMH, but everything else looked fine. And so we started, and we were not successful with the first one. And then we did another a few months later. And I was trying to do fresh transfers because I'm like, God, wait, I don't got time. We need to go. I'm getting older. My cutoff was already 40. I passed the cutoff, right? And so the second IVF, my progesterone was too high for them to implant in a fresh transfer. So they said, hey, we got to send this, freeze it, and we'll come back another time. And I was devastated. And I'm giving you like the very Cliff Note version of a whole bunch of things that kind of happened in between then, because I want to just really highlight the major ones. And at this point, I told my doctor, I said, look, we've spent a lot of money out of pocket at this point. Throw everything at me. Give me just whatever you can give me. And she said, let's do a uterine biopsy. And so we did the uterine biopsy. The results came back about 3 weeks later. And she said, we saw inflammatory markers. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she says, most likely endometriosis. And I said, I don't have endometriosis. Just like when the fibroid, I don't have endometriosis. What do you mean? I don't have painful periods. I don't have, I went through the whole thing again. She's like, I'm going to diagnose you with silent endometriosis. Had never heard of the term before in my life. And so the treatment there then is chemical menopause or medical menopause. It's not fun, Erica. I don't recommend it. The Lupron depot injection that I took every month was $1,500 for one injection. That alone, it makes me sick every time I have to think about it. And I did that. And so the thought process behind that is it's going to calm the inflammation in the uterus. Now, I will say this, and hopefully we'll talk about it a little more. When I was going through this process, because I am very scientific brained because of my public health and nursing background, holistic was not even in my vocabulary. Um, the way that I dealt with the anxiety and the feeling of overwhelmed from all the information was, I'm gonna put my trust in God, I'm gonna put my trust in these doctors. And so, yes, I would get information in Facebook groups, and sometimes I would Google a little bit. But when I felt myself, I turned it up. I'm after groups. I'm not looking up nothing. I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust these doctors. I don't recommend that either. But infertility, unless you've been through it, is such the roller coaster of emotions that you ride. You just trying to just survive and just get through, right? So I remember the third month. At the end of the third month, I called her and I said, if I have to take one more shot of this, I will end this whole thing. My marriage bill, I'm just done. The hot flashes were so bad. You know what I'm talking about. You've been there, done that. Oh my God. I had every single menopause symptom except for hair loss, thank God. It was so bad. Even now, and I know everybody's individual and some women don't have bad menopause. I personally think menopause should be a disability. Like it was that bad, right? And so she was like, okay, we're gonna stop. And we stopped. And then we did the final transfer the next month, which was too soon now looking back at it. And it was unsuccessful. And so devastation, of course. 2 weeks later, you go in for the consult, and she says, I don't think you're going to be successful with your eggs. I really think it's an egg quality issue. I don't think you should try anymore. At this point, I recommend a donor eggs, an egg donor. let's just say I'm still processing this because I still have some personal things I want to say to her about that. I was completely taken aback by that after 2 rounds of IVF. Because I know people that have gone 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14 rounds of IVF and they're still trying with their own. I also feel like, what is the term? Toxic positivity. I feel like when you go to RE clinics, reproductive endocrinology or fertility clinics, there is such it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. One more time. Just keep trying. It's going to happen. And they sell hope, right? And they have to be hopeful, but you get caught up in it. And especially if you have, so I'm a reformed perfectionist, reformed type A, but just like you, multi-passionate, overachieving Black women. That's how we are. We achieve anything we put our minds to. If we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And so for me, if put my mind to it, if this is the goal, all I know, if I do this and this and this and this and this, and I check all the boxes, at the end of the day, I'm going to have a baby, right? Fertility is not that. It's a very low control situation. The outcomes are not up to you. If you ask me, it's very experimental, especially the first one. First couple, maybe. I tell most people just put 3 in your mind, like 3 IVF rounds in your mind, right? So, but going back to what my doctor said, there was never a conversation that said, Quisha, this is the pathway. And at some point, if you're not successful, the next step is this. So, one of the things that I do when I'm talking to people is I talk about the full spectrum as well as alternative pathways to parenthood, whether that is sperm donation, egg donation, surrogacy, the whole gamut of things, right? Um, I wasn't ready for that conversation. I asked my husband for a divorce. I told him, you are young. You still got time. She's laughing at me.
I'm laughing because this is real, y'all. This is so real. Because, I mean, it's already enough to obviously, you've already had 2 kids, right? So to go through all of this just to have another child,
People say that all the time. Like,
it's a
girl, how
lot.
was you doing that? And you already, and my answer is still because I love my husband and I
You love
wanted
your
him to have.
husband, so you were going to do what you had to do. But I get it. It is a crossroads in a marriage when it comes to fertility. It's like, all right, what are we doing? We're
A
spending all,
financial
right. I was
crossroad.
about to say, you
It,
spent all this money up until this point, right? Like,
yes.
it's a lot of money out your pocket. So I'm
And a
laughing because it's
mental,
so
because
real.
I'm in mental emotional crisis at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
so I told him, I said, what I'm not gonna do is 20 years from now, you look at me and resent me because you were never able to have your own child. Now, I said he's Nigerian, but he was like, I can't do the second wife thing. Some people can. That's not his culture, his religion anyway. But I can't do that. Some people can. I couldn't. So I was like, let me just let you do you. And of course, he wasn't having it. And then my son was 14 at the time. He wasn't having it. I called his dad. I called his best friend. I told him, I was like, it was public. We done. We tapped out. I tried. It's over. And he kept on, he said it early. He was hurt as well too. But he was like, there's just no other way, baby. There's just no other way. And so I was listening to a podcast. I used to listen to so many fertility podcasts back then. I can't remember the name of it, but I came across this term called a grief tour because they had had so many losses and failures with IVF, and they went on a grief tour. And I was telling my husband about it. He said, "Why don't you take a grief tour this summer?" Because this was our last thing was in May, and so I went on a grief tour from June to August, and I did like a mother son cruise, and then we spent like a week on the beach for our anniversary, and I traveled and I went to see family. I think I just did like 5 or 6 trips that summer. I was in therapy every week virtually. We had started, even though I wasn't quite in agreement, we had started doing virtual consultations with agencies in Nigeria because we had talked enough about it and knew it was going to cost way too much money to try to do this in the States. Because again, it's not guaranteed, right? So, and I was so angry and so rude when we were doing those consultations virtually, just because I was just not in a good headspace. And so I remember reluctantly, fine, it's your baby, fine. That was kind of my attitude. And I remember my RE, who's a black female, she said, Quisha, I don't want you to be removed from this process because you can still have postpartum. And that was my whole thing. I was going to be very removed from the process because I had been through enough pain and enough, all that stuff. And so I remember telling my husband, I said, well, my last stop on my grief tour is going to be Tijuana, Mexico. I'm going to have weight loss surgery. If this ain't, baby, it's not going to be my DNA. My body's not going to be in this process anymore. So you can find somebody else to have your baby, carry your baby too, right? Because I'm still angry at this point. So I went to Tijuana. We went to Tijuana. I had my weight loss surgery. And I came back and, started losing a ton of weight. We got a personal trainer. We were working out 3 days a week, eating great, sleeping better, feeling better, right? Of course, looking better, feeling better than I ever looked. And then, so that was August. So then November, we went to Nigeria. We went, picked out our egg donor, which is just a whole total emotional, oh God, it's like picking out a puppy online. It's just horrible. And then, of course, we don't know the surrogate because they do anonymous surrogacy there. And so signed all the legal paperwork, and that was a heavy day because the paperwork's like, oh, if you have twins and one's has a birth defect and you don't want it, like we're sending it to the orphanage. It's just all these. It was just it's just one of those things that is so hard to get through. And so we did that, and we were there for about 10 days, and we came home, and we were just counting down the days to find out if the surrogate was pregnant because we had 3 embryos implanted into the surrogate. And so I was on pins and needles, nervous, anxious, nauseous, could not sleep. Of course, there's the time change, so I was very jet lagged. And just out of the blue, the day before we were supposed to find out about the surrogate, I looked at my husband. I was like, when was my last period? So I grabbed my phone. I'm looking at my app and I'm like, whoa, 10 days late. I'm never late. And so I told him, I said, either I'm pregnant, which I don't think so, because the doctors already said you cannot unnaturally unblock. You can't naturally unblock a tube. Yeah, that's what they told me. And so I told him, I said, well, I'm going to run up here to CVS. I'm going to get a test. And I said, I'll test in the morning after we get the call from the surrogate. I was like, we might have 2 babies. We might have no babies. At this point, I really didn't think I was pregnant. But I did remember telling him, if I'm not pregnant, something is seriously wrong with me. I thought maybe I picked up a bug in Nigeria or something like that. So we got the call about 3:34 our time saying, sorry to let you know, none of the embryos took, the surrogate didn't get pregnant. And of course, my husband was like, "Ugh, more money, right? Because I mean, it's no guarantee to any of this." And so I was like, ugh, let's just go in the bathroom. And I said, let's just get this disappointment over at the same time. And as soon as I peed on the stick, I got a dye stealer immediately. So I'm just sitting there on the toilet, like looking at it, like just in shock for a couple of minutes before I call him in there. And he's more in shock. He like stumbles backward. He sits on the edge of the tub, like, how did that happen? And I'm like, what? How do you think it happened? What? That's the first thing they asked. Like, how do you think it happened? And we sat there probably 10 minutes. We could not say anything. We were in shock because at this point it had been a 4.5 year
Year process up until
process up until that,
that second positive pregnancy
up until that.
spontaneously,
Yeah, yeah,
naturally.
yeah. And that was a Friday. Saturday morning, because he was like, I just don't think that's accurate. Saturday morning, I went to like a Quest or a Lab, one of those, and I got my HCG, my progesterone. I just paid out of pocket for my stuff. We got the results Monday morning, confirmed that I was good and pregnant. And then we still didn't believe. I can't even put on him. I found the ultrasound, uh, you know, clinic where they do the little ultrasounds without a doctor's note. And I went in and I said, ma'am, I just need to make sure it's in my uterus because I really felt like it was tubal. I felt like it was ectopic. Yeah, because in my head, in my nurse brain, I'm thinking, well, maybe there was a little hole that opened up in the scar tissue and it implanted there. instead of, I'm just rationalizing anything. And so, sure enough, it was there and the heartbeat was there. And I was like, holy cow, I'm pregnant naturally. And it was then when I really started looking at everything that I was doing holistically. Because after I had the surgery, first of all, my whole body, even though the test showed that my uterus was inflamed, my whole body was inflamed. During the IVF, my doctor thinks I had autoimmune response to the hormones. I developed plantar fasciitis. I developed arthritis in my feet, in my ankles, in my knees. I had to get steroid injections in my knees. Even my hands sometimes would just, my whole body was inflamed. That's not conducive for getting pregnant, right? And when I look at everything that I did after I had my surgery, because it was all about me. Like, I don't have to focus on anything else. I had let everything go because I knew it. I was out, my body was out of the process. I was still going to therapy, of course, processing everything, but diet on point, working out 3 times a day, sleeping better than I. Dairy was out, sugar was out, gluten had came out, everything had come out, and that's when I was like, I just totally overlooked the holistic process of this. And so, yeah, that's where the 9-month-old baby comes from. That's a long way to get to your original question. And
Wow.
and
Well,
since
wow.
go
So,
ahead.
okay, so back me up here. I really wanted to talk about what did because did you go back to the RE doctors, or did you go straight to your OBGYN once you got
My
those
RE
couple?
does not know about my son
Oh, okay, so you didn't
to
even
this
go back
day.
then. Okay, you didn't even go back then. You just went straight to your OB at that point
Yeah,
once you got those confirmations, positive pregnancy, HCG
yeah,
levels going up, the
yeah.
ultrasound was good. Then you just went straight into your OBGYN care.
Yeah, so that is such a great question because people ask me that all the time. Now that as a fertility doula, I'm going to go in the office with my business cards and my flyers and my pitch, and I'm going to offer my services because this is one thing that I don't like about most fertility clinics. I do not think you should just treat the medical aspect of the patient when you're going through IVF. I realize not everybody can afford a therapist. My husband has insurance, and so I was able to do that and could afford the copays. But I personally don't think a fertility clinic should not have in-house therapist, counselor, whatever that is, because it's such a big mental, emotional aspect of that
100%.
process.
I agree. I 100% agree with you. I don't think people really think about, really, when you think of loss, pregnancy loss, fertility losses as a
Yeah,
whole, we don't
yeah.
always consider it being postpartum. And then
Mhm.
what comes with postpartum mental health
Yeah,
disorders and how
yeah.
those are already there, but they may present differently in us as Black
Mhm.
women, particularly. But for sure, when you are going through loss after disappointment, challenge after challenge, and then you're still trying to chug along,
Jog along,
but
yeah.
your mental and emotional state is not always there. So,
It
yes,
takes a
I
hit.
agree. You need
My
a
identity took
Mhm,
such a hit.
mhm.
Which is why it's so important for me to do this work now. And I say, like, I can't guarantee you a baby, but I can guarantee you a transformation if you're open to it. Because what's it's on my website. I was informed by the science, but I was transformed by the journey. Because it is one of those things, again, unless you've been through it or you have loved someone through it like a partner, um, there's not a lot of things that I can compare the journey of infertility. And you talked about loss. I'm so glad you mentioned disappointments and challenges. I think I wrote down about 15 different ways we experience loss going through IVF. Because people think, if you miscarriage, right? That's one loss, right? But no, first of all, you lose your dream of how your family was going to look or how you were going to build your family. You got to get used to what that looks like now. And then if you have IVF losses, right? And then I remember, because I have diminished ovarian reserve, I would get so excited. Oh, 12 follicles. Oh, we about to get 12 eggs, right? And to get in there and get one egg. Did it twice. And so that is a loss. There's like so many letdowns, and you tell yourself not to get excited, not to get too far ahead. But then you're kind of like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be that, God is with me, this type of thing. And when I was in it, I was so angry. Like, I was still showing up at church every Sunday. But baby, I was angry at God. I was mad at him. We had an issue. But now that's why I say I there was a purpose to that pain. I did not understand it then. I totally understand it now. And I also say it was worth it now.
Oh, for sure. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I also just think that as we talked earlier before we started recording, it really has pushed you into what God has called you to do in this season of
Yeah.
life and
Yeah.
how you are stepping into the new season of helping people in a different way
Yeah.
with your fertility doula services. So I would love to
Yeah.
transition and talk about this.
Let's talk about I
Let's
did not
talk about
hear.
let's talk about fertile ground
Yeah.
and what your
Yeah.
goals are for fertile ground and then obviously anything else that you want to share about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I have a friend of mine who is a mother baby nurse. She's done maternal health for years. And because I'm a business owner, I was helping her develop, I think we were going over like some naming her packages or something. We were on a Zoom call and just, kind of playing around with some stuff in her business. And came across the term fertility doula. Like, oh, what is this? We had both not heard of it. And she is a doula, full spectrum doula. And so I looked at a few programs and I was like, oh, that sounds like something that would be right up my alley. And then I kind of brushed it off like, oh, I can't really do this right now. Quisha, you don't need to go back to school. It's just kind of those things, right? But then it just kept coming back to me, as most things, just kind of pull on your heartstrings. And I looked into programs. I looked into exactly what a fertility doula is and does. And I thought, you know what? I think this might be good for the next stage of my life. I'm mid 40s now, and I'm like, do I want to? What does life look like? Especially as we plan, and as I share with you, we plan to move abroad, right? Moving back to Africa, and some of the goals that I had. So I just decided to pursue it. And so, Fertile Ground is my fertility doula services where I walk with women through the hardest seasons, one of the hardest seasons of their life. And I'll be honest, there are things that I am learning in my fertility doula training that I told my husband one day after class, I said, if I would have known about this stuff, I think I could have got pregnant myself. Like, nobody taught me the fertility awareness method. Nobody told me there was a way I could look at my cervical mucus and tell if I was like, and again, I'm a nurse, right? Tired nurse. So there are things I feel like just the body literacy that, or the lack of it rather, that we have as females, and that agency that has been removed from us because we've put so much stock into what our medical professionals, and our healthcare team tell us. So that has all started to fascinate me. And so I'm really, as an educator at heart, um, and not, I mean, as an educator, one of the things that I want to do is just really just body literacy. Um, Getting back to understanding your cycle, understanding what being a woman is and being feminine and all of these other things, and the beauty of that. And yes, if you want to use birth control and other hormones and things, of course, you should be informed. But there are ways that you can do that with natural family planning, right? Um, of course, I want to help women that are bereaving, that are, grieving losses, all of those different losses. But there are people, women specifically, that I speak to that have been told you need IVF and they don't even know what IVF is. Can you imagine the doctor saying, you have PCOS and you're probably going to have IVF to have a baby. And in the office, they're shaking their head. They might get a handout or something, but they really have no idea what that is and what all it entails and all the injections and all the tests and all the appointments and all the time off you got to take. And so being able to not only provide that information, that education, but to hold space for women. All the things, like the things that you do so beautifully, right? Um, and I've always done this. I do this as an entrepreneur. I love creating things that I wish were available for me. That's the biggest thing. As I'm building this brand, I'm creating like, oh, I didn't have this. This would have been nice, right? Or even I saw it, but it wasn't necessarily for my community. And I know you know what that means, which leads me into yoga for fertility, which is going to be one of the main services that I offer. I found yoga after I had my baby, tail end of having him, but I got really into it after I had him. And so I've been doing it for several months. And I thought yoga was poses or what we call asanas, right? Which in a smaller body now, it's actually more comfortable. I can do it. I was always embarrassed when I was in a larger body. But yoga is not just poses. Yoga poses is just one limb of yoga. Yoga is your mindset, and it's a lifestyle, and it is breath, and it is movement, and it is seeking bliss, and it has really shaped my mental health and how I handle stress and how I move through life. And it is something that I think Black women deserve too. When you go to these spaces, a lot of times I'm the only Black woman in the yoga class, right? Um, But I think, as with many things, until we can see ourselves represented, then other people don't know it's okay to do it, you know. So yes, there's been a lot of research that talks about the benefits of yoga for fertility because of stress, because of helping you get to that parasympathetic nervous system, because of helping open up the hips and the pelvis, right? Because of improving blood flow to that area as well. Even energetic work. And I know now I'm a Christian, and I know some people might say some stuff for me about, but I'm going to say we call it chakras. I think it's actually pronounced chakras. But even kind of the energy and how it flows in your body and the different chakras, um, all of that has been beneficial. I've seen how it's been beneficial. I'm training with um, uh, instructors that specialize in yoga and fertility. So I'm really, really excited about being able to incorporate that in my holistic offerings as I walk with women and be with them. And also coming from a spiritual lens as well. I'm not super preachy. I'm not denominational, but I believe that faith and spirituality exist
Everywhere.
regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, then you can call it universe, you can call it creator, you can call it whatever you want. But I want you to tap into whatever that higher power is, because that helps us transcend, that helps us get to that transformation that we're looking for. And ultimately, if people ask me, what is the transformation that you're trying to help women achieve? Because pregnancy, that's a great side effect, but I can't guarantee that outcome, right?
Yes.
It's going back to, I think I said it earlier when we were recording, I think when I said my identity was shot
Mm-hmm.
around IVF. My worth, my self-worth was shot. And so really want women to be, my motto for Fertile Ground is rooted in faith, ready for anything. And I really want them to be so rooted in their identity, so rooted in faith, that they are ready for anything, whatever that outcome, whatever that path of that journey may be. So, yeah, that's a little bit about Fertile Ground.
Exciting, exciting about ready for fertile ground, and I'm ready for what you are going to do when you do move abroad with fertile ground, and how what impact you're going to make abroad. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So thank you. So Fertile Ground, the website is fertilegroundus.com. The US stands for United States. At some
Mhm.
point, it will be fertilegroundng.com. The NG will be short for Nigeria. So I've mentioned my husband is Nigerian. We do have plans on moving abroad, at least partially, back and forth. And so a couple of the reasons why we chose to go there when we pursued donor eggs and gestational surrogacy was one, it was significantly cheaper, and then two, we just wanted the same DNA, the culture for the egg donor to share my husband's culture. And so, in researching that landscape, just a little bit about the culture, um, yeah, you got to have a baby, right? It is, how can I put this nicely? Because it's not very nice for the women that are experiencing it, but there's a lot of stock put on a woman's worth and value if she can conceive and have children. And if not, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of stock and value put on that, which is why some men do go and get a second wife or a third wife or something if their wives cannot conceive. And so I was not aware, and there's other parts of the world like this also, but I was not aware that there are over 100 IVF clinics in Nigeria. It is a very booming business. I know where we went, they recruited their female students or clients from the University of Lagos between the ages of 21 and 25. And then they constantly recruited surrogates. I don't remember the ages, but they had to have had one child already. And at our particular agency, they had multiple, at least two or three women coming donating eggs every day, and they had surrogates injected and ready for implementation every day. It's different stages. Yes, ma'am. So, and let me pause here. So when I say it's a very emotional process, as someone that is a public health practitioner, I struggled also with, am I exploiting these women? Because when you think about, states like Canada's, you have to only do surrogacy if it's altruistic. You cannot make money. If you try to make money, you're going to get your fine, you might get jail time, right? But in most countries, you get compensated for doing so. Well, of course, naturally, it's a viable option for someone that doesn't have money, that might be living in poverty. So I really struggled with, am I exploiting these women? I was asking myself like questions like, is she gonna have eggs left when she gets my age, right? Because how many times has she donated? I thought about, also the gestational surrogate. Luckily, at this agency, the surrogates lived on the premises. And so I knew that they were eating a certain type of diet and different things like that. But there's so many things that go through your mind. So I really, really have to wrestle with that. And I still do. But part of the work that I want to do over there is also advocate for those women, because I do believe in body autonomy. And I do believe that if I want to sell my eggs because I need this money to pay for tuition, nobody should tell me that I cannot do that, right? So anyway, so I'll get off. That's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother soapbox, but I did want to interject it there because I think there's so many nuances that people don't think about when it comes to this type of stuff. So get me back to, where was I at? What we were talking about? Oh, why I'm going over there. So there's 100 IVF clinics over there. So even though it's not talked about, even though it's very taboo, people are definitely having babies like that. My mother-in-law, God rest her soul, died a couple of years ago. And the last time my husband went to see her, um, he didn't tell me this until after I got pregnant. She told him, don't put her body through anymore. Because, they knew what we were going through. One thing I will say about us is we were not secretive, not with family, and very close friends knew. That was it. And so his mom said, she's older and she's been through enough. Stop putting her body through it. Why don't you just have a baby? How these other people in Nigeria having a baby? He said he didn't know what she meant at the time. And so after we went through that and had the experience, and he told me, I said, that's what your mama was talking about. So that lets you know it's common knowledge, but nobody is talking about it publicly. So that's one of the things I would love to do. I would love to go over the medical care has gotten better, especially for IVF there. But just like here in the States, there's medical care, but there's not psychosocial care. And I do believe they go hand in hand if we're going to treat patients and clients holistically. And so I would love to take my American self over there. And, some of the ways that we do things, I would love to train other people to be fertility doulas because that's what I do. I'm a trainer. And I would love to walk with those women to just keep them informed and educated and understand their rights and what's going on with their body and have them be advocates for themselves because the healthcare system there is special. I'm gonna say that, and I'll leave it there. Um, so I'm really excited about what that looks like. Certainly, hopefully, we can have a wellness center there as well, and have yoga and some other kind of holistic practices, meditation, breath work, etc. But these are all just dreams right now. Actually, it's a plan. It's actually written down on paper, but we're gonna start here in the States and go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So amazing. You spoke it out loud. So,
That's right. That's right.
we believe in speaking our ears to God's and
That's right.
manifesting and really
Yes.
everything that you said. I think people think some of the Western medicine types of things are not of
Better.
God.
Oh, not of God. Oh, yeah,
Not
yeah.
of
That type of
God
stuff.
or
Yeah.
just not, may not fit with their own spiritual practice. But I feel like God's created all of that for us to find
Exactly.
find ourselves in it when we need
Yes.
it. So if you
Yeah.
feel called to yoga, you should go do it. You feel called to
Yeah.
Pilates, you should go do it. If you feel called
Yeah.
to meditate, you should go do it because
Yeah.
that's what God called you to do. And I
Yeah.
don't
And
think anything's
I
wrong
feel
with
like
it.
honestly, I've
I don't
gotten
feel like
closer to God since I've started in those
it,
practices.
exactly.
That's so great. Yeah. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I
So I
agree.
completely agree.
I agree. I'm like, man, if you were called to it, go do it because you just never know how much he's going to stretch you in doing those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that you are really incorporating yoga practice and meditation and breath work because I don't think people really know. And really, to be honest with you, we really were never taught it.
Mhm.
So it's like we're going through this most devastating period of our lives trying to have babies, trying to keep them in, trying to bring them home.
Mhm.
And we have no tools on really how to manifest that or really to really ground ourselves and get us back to where we need to be in this new realm that we're in. So it's good that you definitely have found yoga, especially on this other side and postpartum where you are really getting into it. But it also is, like I said, you are definitely called to really help walk people through the similar journey that you've gone through.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
would love to do some rapid fire questions with you.
Okay. Okay.
What is one word that you would describe your grief journey?
Ooh, and I didn't get these questions beforehand, so if there's a little bit of pause, it is
No, it's
because
fine.
I'm
It's fine.
seriously thinking. Um, to describe my grief journey, gut wrenching, which is
Mhm.
technically two words, but I
Oh,
mean
no, it's
that's
fine.
okay. Gut
No, that is
wrenching.
perfectly fine. Yep. What is one thing that you would say to someone that is newly experiencing fertility challenges?
I would ask them how long, and then I would tell them, based on how long. Like for instance, if they're 40, act immediately, right?
Mhm.
35 to 40, you've been trying for about 6 months. Okay, now go see. Um, but I would say act. I think, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the culture, and I shouldn't, but I think for Black people, a lot of times we wait
Mhm.
too late.
Mhm.
I had to have this talk with my dad about going to the doctor. He was like, "But I don't get sick," and I said, "Well, that's you don't just go to the doctor. It's not called sick care. It's
Mhm.
called health care. You
Mhm.
go so you don't get sick, right?" And so I would just say, take action. And what's wrong with getting a baseline? Even if you just
Mhm.
started and you haven't even, just get a baseline. Just take action so you know where you are from the beginning.
Yes, I completely agree with every realm of the healthcare system, especially with women's health. We don't get the baseline we need, so we don't even know
Yeah.
when things are bad until they're very, very
There,
bad.
yes, yes,
hmm
yeah.
Um, what does never healing alone mean to you?
Oh, community.
Mm.
Because I heard a long time ago this saying called community is the cure. Here in the States, we don't really have community. We stay in, we'll be somewhere, we don't even know our neighbor's name. We've been in the same neighborhood 10 years. We don't know the next door. But as we prepare to move abroad, they they have community. We come from that as Black people. We come from community where the village raised our children and things like that. And I think part of the healing that's going to take place on a journey like this, like an infertility journey, is you can't walk it alone. You can't. Community is the cure.
Community is the cure. Oh, I love that. And I actually was going to end asking you a question about community is
Uh-huh.
like, where did you find your community? Obviously, I think that you definitely have community probably within your family. And then, how are you still learning to build community?
That's a great question. There was no community with my family. So let me just say this. Let me
Oh,
say no.
oh, this is good.
Yeah, let me say this. I don't think you can find adequate community with people that don't share the lived experience. Um, they can try their best to understand, right? But the things that they will say, oh, just stop worrying about it. Once you stop worrying about it, it's gonna happen. You know, um, I remember, and I love my mama to death. I'm gonna have to tell her I'm gonna say this on the podcast. I remember when I had that miscarriage on my 41st birthday, and my sister was crying. She was upset, and my mama said, "Girl, stop crying. She's 41. Stuff like that happened at her age." So yes, we had family and friends that were aware. I even have a friend and she knows it and we made up and all that. I didn't tell her till the year later, but when I miscarried, she said, "Girl, you do too much. You gotta sit down. You gotta da 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 da." You know, so that's what I mean when I say family wasn't community. I would put them in support persons category, but community is where you are in a group of people with a shared lived experience. That's what I think that women need going through their infertility journey. Hope I
Like,
answered that.
no, I 100% agree. So I would love for you to leave our listeners just with some encouraging words as they are navigating through. Obviously, we're recording this in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. Um,
Oh,
what encouraging words can you leave with our listeners who may be going through their own fertility challenges this year?
God loves you. Um, he knew you before you were born, while you were yet formed in the womb. He has plans for you. Those plans may or may not include a baby the way that you imagine it. But there are many ways. My therapist said this and it really changed some things for me. She said, "Quisha, I want you to stop saying you're going to have a baby. You're going to make a baby. I want you to start saying, build my family." There are many ways that you can build your family. Will you have to grieve what that looks like? Maybe. But if you just trust God that you can have that family that He intended for you to have, that may show up a number of different ways. So I hope that gives somebody some encouragement.
Just love it all. So where can we connect with you after this episode? Drop
Yeah,
your socials, websites, all the
yeah,
things.
yeah. So the Fertile Ground brand, you can find me at Fertile Ground with Quisha, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and the website is fertilegroundus.com.
Thank you so much, Quisha, for being on the podcast. I'm excited for everything that God is doing in your life. And I am here ready for you. When you move to Nigeria, you just let me know, sis.
Yes,
Because I would
thank you.
love to help you out in anything that you need.
Thank you, love. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
All right. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com to stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter. Please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you